In the majestic city of Troy, nestled along the shimmering waters of the Aegean Sea, there lived a young boy named Callias. The tales woven through the bustling markets spoke of Troy's impenetrable walls, which stood like mighty sentinels against the trials of time. Only the strongest and most skilled artisans could have crafted such fortifications, a marvel whispered to have been commissioned by the gods themselves. Callias grew up under the gentle shadow of these towering walls, with an unbending belief that nothing could harm his beloved city. Each morning he'd play alongside the other children, their laughter echoing alongside the brick paths that wound like Alep's spiral snail shell through the stone streets of the city. They darted between merchants who offered vibrant silks and wares brought from distant lands, a testament to Troy's prosperity. His father, a learned philosopher, would recite tales of heroism and divine favor over evening meals, instilling in Callias a deep pride in his Trojan heritage. The gods were always watching, so they were told, and Troy was their favored jewel, an eternal flame in an ever-darkening world. Callias took comfort in these stories, believing his city to be eternal, untouched by the chaos that sometimes whispered at the edges of their peace. Yet in the sea breeze there mingled secrets, fragments of unease carried from foreign lands. The growing might of Greece loomed like a quiet storm on the horizon. Foreign kings and their insatiable ambitions are rumoured to have their eyes set upon Troy, the city of Enos. One afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the world was painted in shades of gold, Callias's elder brother returned from a venture with tales of distant conflicts. He recounted a Greek princess, Helen, whose fate now intertwined with Troy's. The whispers grew louder, filled with tidings of war, a quarrel among the gods that transcended mortal affairs, reaching the very heart of Callias's home. Despite the mounting signs, Callias held tightly to his father's words. The citizens went about their days, believing in the invulnerability granted by the walls that loomed overhead. Dreams of endless peace clouded theirs, just as gently as the clouds veiled the peaks of Ida on soft autumn mornings. But life continued, and the sun rose and fell, as if paying homage to the city without reprieve. Callias continued to roam through the fragrant gardens and winding streets, never considering even the possibility that change was coming. For in his heart, Troy was timeless, a sanctuary where the past, present, and future were forever intertwined. As the seasons danced subtly from vibrant summer to the gentle embrace of autumn, life in Troy carried on. Callias delighted in long afternoons spent beneath the city's ancient olive trees, while the whispers of market gossip occasionally found their way to his eager ears. His days unfolded with the same rhythm he had always known, a waltz of predictability and joy. However, the tales of Helen, the woman said to have launched 1,000 ships, began to permeate even the most secluded corners of the city. She had been brought to Troy by Paris, a Trojan prince whose love for her was matched only by the fury it had ignited across the Aegean. The Greeks, once distant and nebulous figures in Troy's history, were now formidable rivals, their power a stark contrast to Callias's idyllic life. The air quivered with anticipation and anxiety as steeds from across the realm galloped through Trojan gates. They carried men of valor and arms, allies sworn to King Priam, the revered ruler of Troy. Callias watched, perched on the stone railing that guarded his favorite view of the port, as silhouettes of ships burgeoned daily against the skyline, a shadowy armada that laid claim to the waters. The Greeks had come, their ships a fleet of unparalleled might, led by kings and warriors of legend, Agamemnon, Achilles, and Odysseus among them. They sought Helen's return, demanding what they claimed was theirs. Yet for all their power, the Greek forces found themselves halted by the formidable fortifications that had bred Callias's certitude in Troy's eternal security. As the siege unfolded, life within the walls strained but did not falter. The citizens rallied, hearts steeled by their belief in the divine providence of their city. Callias's father joined in the intellectual battles of strategy, helping to fortify defenses by night and recounting tales of ancient sieges by day. Callias listened, absorbing each story, a sponge to the world's knowledge and fears. Troy's defenders, bolstered by allies from neighboring lands who responded to calls of kinship and honor, managed to hold the Greeks at bay. They repelled assaults with valor, wielding not just bronze and iron, but the indomitable spirit of a people whose roots clung tenaciously to their storied soil. But Callias, though enraptured by the stirring battles unfolding beyond his view, could not ignore the subtle changes that shadowed his once carefree adventures. For while the city stood firm, the realization of their struggle began to flicker beneath Troy's timeless gleam. Food grew scarcer, and the bustling energy that had once characterized the marketplace was replaced by quiet resolve. And yet, the walls still stood, the gates held. For Callias and others like him, the unyielding spirit of their people sustained their hope, each day a new brushstroke in a canvas that refused to acknowledge its own unraveling. As he gazed towards the horizon where the siege lines were drawn so far from his world, he whispered a silent oath to the serenity he cherished and the city he loved. For now, the sun continued its steady rise and fall over Troy's steadfast walls. As the years toiled quietly on, the siege continued its relentless grasp upon Troy, transforming from a distant tale into an ever-present reality for young Callias. Though still resilient, the city bore the marks of time and conflict, its people carrying the weight of war as a constant companion. Life persisted within the formidable walls, a testament to Trojan resilience amid adversity. The tides of battle ebbed and flowed like the whispering sea, and whispers of new heroes and tragedies reached Callias's ears. Among these was the tale of Hector, noble prince and defender of Troy, whose valor in combat inspired awe and fortified the courage of Troy's beleaguered people. Hector's duels with the Greeks, particularly with the fierce Achilles, became the living legends of Callias's childhood, a brave testament to Troy's indomitable spirit. Yet the very night seemed to herald omens of change. One particular evening, the sound of wailing reached Callias's window. News of Hector's fall at the hands of Achilles had spread like wildfire through the city. The once unyielding strength seemed, if only momentarily, to flicker, and Callias felt an unfamiliar weight upon his young heart. In this crack of their armor, he glimpsed a vulnerability he had never acknowledged might exist within the ancient walls of Troy. As the city mourned the beloved prince, Achilles himself would not remain unscathed. The stories rumbled through the city streets of how Paris, skilled with the bow and guided by Apollo, avenged his brother by striking down the mighty Greek hero with an arrow to the heel. For a brief moment, hope flickered anew in the hearts of Troy's warriors. They could stand against the greatest of foes. However, the war's persistence chipped away at their resilience, the siege shifting from one of bold assaults to a continual chafing at their spirit. With his childish pursuits giving way to early manhood, Callias found himself drawn to the responsibilities of city life, his innocence slowly relinquished to the harsh reality of war. In the uneasy truce of seemingly endless cycles, new arrivals to the Greek camps signaled grim intentions. A sudden departure by the Greek armies brought whispers of both relief and suspicion across Troy's squares. Cunning Odysseus, renowned for his guile, had devised a stratagem, a gift of towering wood, the guise of surrender. Within Troy, the vision of the wooden horse sparked debate. Some argued prudence and caution, while others embraced it as a trophy of their resilience. In the end, the people, eager for closure and celebration, drew the horse into the safety of their walls, a choice that danced dangerously with the fate of the city. As dusk unfolded and the ruse unravelled, suspicion slumbered while celebration blossomed. Yet as Callias retired that night, the familiar comfort of Troy's embrace, his dreams whispered to him discordant notes, a shadow looming larger than the city's stone pillars, an echo of dread, unsought but relentless. The story of Troy's downfall was yet to conclude, but within the slumbering city, a seed of profound change had furtively taken root. A wooden horse now harboured their fate. The morning sun rose with a deceptive calmness over the city of Troy, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, as if heralding a new era of peace. Callias awoke to an air of celebration that still lingered from the previous evening's festivities. The colossal wooden horse, now settled within the heart of the city, stood as a symbol of what seemed to be Troy's hard-won victory. Yet even as the city hummed with an unusual vibrancy, a gnawing unease gnawed at the edges of Callias's thoughts. The stories recounted by his father about war and subterfuge echoed in his mind, stirring a restlessness he could not shake, venturing into the open streets. He was swept into the tide of joyous Trojans who gathered around the towering structure, marveling at the craftsmanship and heralding it as a divine sign of their endurance. Callias noticed something curious. The priests and elders, who typically offered counsel and caution at the whispers of strange omens, now stood silent and complacent. As if spellbound by the shared euphoria of victory, they too had chosen to overlook the unease whispered by the winds of war. But Callias was not the only one who harboured doubts. As he wandered, he found himself beside Laocoon, a respected seer and priest of Apollo, who gazed warily at the wooden horse. With a voice tinged with urgency, Laocoon defiantly cried that the gift was a Greek trick, a warning he elucidated with fervour, urging the city to heed caution. Yet as if in response to his plea, a sign of divine wrath intervened. Serpents emerged from the depths and silenced Laocoon's voice tragically. Dismissed as divine retribution against sacrilege, Laocoon's fate did little to sway the jubilant Trojans, who continued in their antics. Callias, however, felt an insistent tug at his conscience, the echoes of his father's stories ringing clearer than ever. As night descended upon Troy, casting long shadows across its storied walls, an uneasy anticipation settled upon Callias. The city slept in a weary embrace, laying down their worries and fears as they basked in what they believed to be safety. It was this silence that preceded the storm, a tranquil veneer masking the shifting undercurrent that Callias's keening mind sensed but could not fully comprehend. In the depth of the night, as Callias lay awake with thought, the whispers of history unspooled. From the belly of the wooden horse, the Greek warriors emerged, threading silently through the cobbled streets as if orchestrated by the inexorable hands of fate. They set upon Troy with a swiftness and ferocity that belied the peace from which they had thus far abstained. Fires sprang to life against the sombre sky, illuminating the betrayal wrought from within. Callias, roused by the growing tumult, stumbled into a nightmare realized, a city engulfed in chaos, its walls breached not by force but by deceit. As the conflagration spread, Callias felt the undercurrents of history shift around him, the illusion of invincibility shattering as the Greek tide swept through his beloved Troy. In that moment, everything he had known as eternal crumbled, and the weight of destiny bore down upon him, not as an ending, but the cruel twist in a saga yet unfinished. The city of Troy, once a bastion of hope and history, now lay besieged under a sky thick with smoke and despair. The past night's deceit had shattered the illusions of safety, leaving in its wake a stark reality of war's relentless devastation. Callias, eyes wide with shock and disbelief, scrambled through the chaos, navigating the familiar streets now twisted by destruction. Every corner revealed new horrors. The walls that had stood as symbols of Troy's indomitability now served as backdrops for desperate struggles. The clamour of battle rang through the air, a cacophony of clashing swords and cries, both triumphant and anguished. The Greeks, having emerged from their wooden subterfuge, moved with daunting precision, their ranks sweeping through the city with the inevitability of a storm unleashed. Callias, though young, understood the gravitas of this moment. He moved with determination, driven by a desperate desire to find his family amid the ruins. The path led him to his home, now an echo of the life it had once sheltered. Inside, his father tended to the wounded. His studies in philosophy and strategy turned to the harsh realities of sustaining life. Callias, his father's voice cut through the din, a beacon of familiarity and hope. The two embraced briefly before the elder explained their dire need to evacuate, to seek refuge beyond the crumbling bastions of Troy. Though the city was lost, life persisted, a legacy to preserve beyond its walls. As dawn's light crept cautiously across the devastated landscape, Callias and his family joined a stream of survivors heading towards the city's last stronghold, the citadel. From its perch, King Priam and the remaining noble defenders prepared their final stand, a rallying point for those who still dreamt of defiance and survival. Amidst the crowd, Callias glimpsed the grim determination shared amongst the Trojans. Men and women of courage who, despite their heartbreak, spoke of legends to guide those yet unsure. They drew upon tales of endurance, crafting a tapestry of shared memories to sustain them through the desolation. Callias listened, imprinting these stories in his heart, a bequest to carry forward, yet time was not on their side. As the sun climbed higher, so did the insurmountable presence of Greek forces. With each moment, the breadth of Troy's downfall widened, bringing a new reality to the fore. Wooden splinters, once the city's protection, now littered the streets, bearing silent witness to their betrayal. Huddled within the citadel's confines, Callias felt the shifting balance of power, a delineation between what had been and what was inexorably coming to pass. He understood that this siege marked not just Troy's fall, but the dawning of a new epoch, where what remained of their legacy hinged on the resilience. In the aftermath of the tempest that had ravaged Troy, the city's once majestic walls lay broken and scarred. Callias wandered through the smouldering ruins, his heart heavy with the weight of irretrievable loss. The air was thick with the smell of ash and smoke, a grim reminder of the night that had shattered their world. Around him, the survivors moved like phantoms amid the desolation, each grappling with their own fragments of tragedy. The Greeks, now undisputed victors, traversed the ruins with a purpose born of a long-sought triumph. Their faces were a blend of exhaustion and muted jubilation, the spoils of their decade-long siege finally within grasp. Yet to Callias, they were ghosts bearing the demise of everything he held dear, a juxtaposition of conqueror and carrion. Desperate for solace, Callias's feet led him to the temple of Athena, one of the few structures to withstand the onslaught with its integrity mostly intact. Here, the priestesses moved quietly, tending to those seeking refuge or offering whispered prayers of guidance. Despite the destruction surrounding it, the temple remained a sanctuary, a place where Callias felt the whispering echoes of something eternal. It was there he encountered Andromache, wife of the fallen hero Hector, whose face bore the solemn grace of one acquainted with grief. Her presence inspired both awe and empathy within Callias, for she embodied the spirit of Troy, a beacon of resilience amid the ruins. Despite her own losses, she offered comfort to others, a silent testament to the intricate dance of strength and mourning. She shared with Callias the plans to spare the last remnants of Trojan dignity, a desperate hope to salvage some aspect of their identity. While the Greek victors parceled the captives for enslavement or exile, Andromache and the elders whispered of strategies to retain elements of their lineage and culture, even in foreign lands. The notion of preserving Troy's essence, even as its physicality lay in ruin, ignited a flicker of determination within Callias. In hushed conversations, they recounted the long-standing alliances and bonds forged through history, grasping at the threads of their shared existence. Though scattered, they were resolved to carry forth the stories, knowledge, and virtues of their homeland, lest these too become victims of the encroaching oblivion. As Callias stood amid the temple's shadowed columns, a resolute belief stirred within him that the soul of Troy transcended its walls and ashes. The living memory of what once was would continue to echo, not only through songs and stories, but in the shared blood and spirit of those who survived. With this newfound purpose, Callias accepted the reality that while the city of Troy had fallen, its legacy had not. In the interplay of past and future, time's relentless currents would carry forth this story, a testament to both the rise and resilience of a people whose spirit could not be quelled by conquest alone. The flame would endure, flickering brightly in new lands, breathing life into the mythic past from the embers of the present. With the passage of weeks, Troy's landscape transformed from the vivid hues of ruin into the muted tones of occupation. The once bustling city, now a somber shadow of itself, lay under Greek control. The conquerors, though victorious, found themselves contending not only with the spoils of war, but the burden of managing a once great city and its remaining populace. For Callias, life shifted as he adapted to this new milieu of uncertainty. The resilience he had seen in his people inspired him to navigate these uncharted waters of Trojan history with caution and hope. Under the watchful eyes of their new overlords, the remaining Trojans found ways to endure, their identity subtly enfolded into everyday acts of resistance and cultural preservation. Greeks established their presence with fortification, repurposing Troy's defences in the logical occupation of a strategic location. This control was a blend of military might and the pragmatic governance needed to integrate Troy into their expanding domains. Callias watched as the presence of Greek soldiers and their foreign customs slowly seeped into the fragments of daily life, casting shadows across Troy's remaining culture. It was during this time that Callias encountered Neoptolemus, son of Achilles, a figure both feared and resented by the remnants of Troy. Neoptolemus, a product of his warrior lineage and driven by a desire to honor his father's legacy, moved through the fallen city with a mixture of authority and youthful impetuosity. Though an enemy, there was an undeniable charisma to the young warrior, one that Callias observed cautiously from a distance. One afternoon, fate drew Callias into a direct encounter with Neoptolemus. The Greek prince, intrigued by the youthful Trojan's unwavering gaze and apparent defiance, engaged him in conversation. Initially wary, Callias's knowledge and pride in his heritage piqued Neoptolemus's interest, sparking unexpected dialogues across cultural divides. In these exchanges, Callias cautiously shared perspectives of Troy's history and its heroes, moments tinged with both tension and mutual curiosity. Through these interactions, Callias gleaned insights into the Greeks, their internecine rivalries and ambitions, as revealing as the influence of their myths and gods on their actions. Neoptolemus shared tales of his father Achilles, and as the young men navigated the legacy of their respective forebears, an understanding began to evolve, not of friendship, but of a mutual recognition. As autumn settled upon the land, the seeds of Troy's legacy took root in unlikely places. Though the city lay in ruin, its spirit flickered in the stories exchanged beneath the weary sun, in the shared laughter and quiet query that arose among captors and captives alike. As Callias learned to balance respect and resentment, he realized that even in subjugation there was room for resilience, for moments of genuine humanity to transcend the barriers of conquest. Underneath the scars of Troy, amidst the transformation of physical and cultural landscapes, Callias stood resolved. He bore witness to the quiet resurgence of his people's identity, not static, but dynamic and adaptive, woven into the ever-shifting patterns of history. Unbeknownst to him, it was this very adaptability, the ability to endure and evolve even under the weight of tragedy, that would secure Troy's mythic legacy for generations to come. As the remnants of Troy settled into this new existence under Greek dominion, whispers of fate's inexorable pull threaded subtly through Callias's life. The adaptation to changed circumstances was relentless, the dichotomy of daily survival intertwined with the preservation of cultural pride. Despite his youthful resolve, Callias sensed the inevitable ebb and flow of power shifting around him, reshaping familiar landscapes and beliefs. The Greeks, having established their occupation, faced their own challenges. Managing a land of vast heritage and history required more than mere military power. It demanded understanding and adaptation. Greek administrators began melding their governance with Trojan customs, a pragmatic yet complex tapestry mindful of the city's exalted past. The Greeks, too, were learning to bear the weight of Troy's legacy, even as they imposed their own desires upon it. Within this echo of assimilation and resilience, Callias assumed the mantle of a silent chronicler. He committed his days to gathering stories from the elder Trojans, documenting their shared history, legends and knowledge with a fervour born of necessity. These oral traditions, once the currency of everyday's heart and soul, now became crucial keys for preserving Troy's spirit against the encroaching tide of foreign rule. During this time, Callias developed an unlikely rapport with Helen, formerly the catalyst of war, now a figure of enigma, wrapped in tales far less grandiose than her initial myth. Her presence in Troy, long anticipated as queen, remained filled with ambiguous legacy, her beauty undiminished, her tales reframed by time and conquest. In rare private moments, Callias witnessed in her a wistful reflection of lost innocence and unspoken dreams, a parallel to his own evolving understanding of identity and resilience. The city's transformation included the construction of new temples and the adaptation of existing ones. Though Greek deities now shared spaces once dedicated solely to Trojan gods, devotions intersected, and faith remained a persistent force, portraying the gradual blend of cultures within the city's sacred spaces. In quiet corners of the city, Callias encountered other youth who, like him, sought connection amidst disconnection. They gathered to debate, dream, and dissect the world now unfolding before them. These meetings beneath the shade of crumbling columns sowed seeds of camaraderie within the next generation, a tapestry woven from strands of both Greek and Trojan ancestry, each seeking a voice within this nascent ideological blending. Through these endeavors, Callias saw glimpses of a different future. He envisioned a Troy not merely remembered through the ashes of its past, but alive in the identity of its people, continually growing despite adversity. For as each exchange of knowledge and tradition transpired, a silent promise took shape. Wherever the winds of fate might guide them, Troy's heart would withstand the test of time. Approaching adulthood, Callias embraced this fragile continuity, his life becoming a bridge between worlds, past and present, conqueror and conquered, tangible and remembered. This perseverance, born from the ashes of Troy, signaled not an end, but a metamorphosis, one that would ripple through history, defying the constraints of time. As he bore witness to such potential for unity, a young man's resolve transformed into a guardian's vow to carry forward the legacy of an undying spirit entwined with the ceaseless march of history itself. Years passed, and the outlines of Callias's life continued to shift like waves sculpting the shore. The young Trojan, once a mere child, lost in the shadows of Troy's downfall, had grown into a man defined by resilience and purpose. The lessons of the siege, the city's occupation, and the silent strength of his people had woven themselves into his identity, forging a bridge between past and present. The ruins of Troy, now a silent echo of history, found themselves melding increasingly with the frameworks of Greek colony life. New settlements emerged around the once mighty city, built with an intentional synthesis of Trojan and Greek influences. This delicate balance of integration and retention became the defining feature of this evolving landscape, where stories of old gods met new, dialogues flourished, and shared destinies were silently crafted. Though outwardly the Greeks had conquered, Callias understood that the spirit of Troy remained vibrant, more than ink on pages or echoes in song. It lived in the traditions lovingly passed down, in the rituals preserved within families and communities, and in each breath taken by those who considered themselves custodians of an ancient heritage. As the city settled into this unique confluence of cultures, Callias found himself playing a pivotal role, not as a warrior or politician, but as a keeper of history and guardian of memory. He assumed the role of a scribe, working tirelessly to preserve the rich oral traditions and written histories, threading them into chronicles and teachings to ensure the stories of Troy endured. Amidst this new tapestry of life, Callias encountered Helen once more, her life marked by the complexities of peace and reclamation. She had grown into a figure of diplomacy and reconciliation, using her once contentious legacy to bridge the divides between Trojan memory and Greek dominance. Through Helen, Callias gained deeper insight into the art of negotiation, a skill that proved invaluable in navigating the terrain of cultural coexistence. In time, Callias witnessed the seeds of friendship and mutual respect sprout between former adversaries. Though remnants of the past lingered, new partnerships emerged from shared aspirations for growth and discovery. The children of Troy and Greece now played together, embodying a union of histories that their ancestors could scarcely have imagined. In the labyrinth of Troy's ruins, now tinged with new life, Callias walked alongside Neoptolemus, now more ally than adversary, sharing stories of their father's legacies as they reflected on the future they were forging. They recognized a singular truth, that the spirit of Troy was not confined to memory alone, but alive in the generation that would carry its teachings forward. As the sun set over the peaceful harbor, gilding the water with hues of amber, Callias stood at the threshold of promise and possibility. He understood that Troy, once a jewel of power, now a symbol of resilience, lived on not just in stone and story, but in the hearts and minds of its people. Embedded within them was a steadfast promise, silent yet resounding, to honor the past while embracing what lay ahead. In this quiet moment, with history at his back and the future stretched like a canvas before him, Callias whispered a silent vow to his city, to ensure that Troy's centuries-old flame flickered eternally, crafting light against the darkness of oblivion, its glow forever testament to a people who refused to be forgotten.